Hello, good morning. I apologize to everybody. There was not a notification that anybody had joined. I'm going to allow you all to speak. I believe you are all neighbors, of the property. Is that correct? I'll just ask everybody to confirm. I don't see our applicant here. You should all be able to unmute yourselves.
Yes, I'm a neighbor.
Okay,
I'm a second neighbor.
okay, and then I would assume the Teresa Campbell as well. Okay, well, again, I apologize if you have been waiting. This will be quick. The applicant has not signed on. I have not heard from them, but the public hearing will still take place. I appreciate you joining and being part of the meeting. I am going to remute everybody. I'm going to officially start the meeting, go through the process a little bit, and then you will have a chance to speak on any public if you like. You can continue. Teresa and Daniel, your hands are both raised. Is that, but I'm going to mute everybody, but I will give you the chance to speak when the public hearing begins. All right. So welcome everybody. Again, apologies for the delay. We are here today for the zoning administrator hearing for the proposed single family home lot improvements and accessory structure at 380 Margarita Drive. We will not, the applicant has not joined us, so I will give a brief presentation on what has been proposed. Once that is complete, I will, if the applicant has joined us by then, they will have a chance to speak. If they have not joined us, I will open the hearing for public comment, at which time you may raise your hand. I don't see anybody joining on phone. If anybody is on the phone, you can press *9 and that will raise your hand and I will ask you to unmute. We do not have a timed public comment clock like we do for other public hearings, but we do ask, of course, that your comments remain reasonable. Following the public hearing, I won't respond to the public hearing as we go, but I will close the public hearing and respond to any questions or concerns following public comment. Again, once it's been closed, once I have responded, depending on the nature of the questions, I may open up public comment again if there's any additional concerns or clarifications needed. However, likely I will make a determination on the project and review the findings and conditions. So with that, the public hearing, the zoning administrator hearing will begin. My name is Renee Nickenick. As you know, I'm the acting zoning administrator and project planner for this proposal to, again, this is a request for an environmental and design review permit for the construction of a new single family home with a detached garage and site improvements on a vacant hillside property. The property in question is a part of a planned development district, District 1808-H. In this district, a building envelope was established as well as a very specific design for the home. The reason this project is going to public hearing has gone through the process because the proposed home does not align with the approved design in that planned development district. In the final version of the design that the applicant has prepared, this is going to be a one-story flat roof home and will mimic the same design as the accessory structure. There will be a detached pool at the front of the home that will include an up to 17-foot retaining wall to retain that pool. The applicant has proposed a palette of neutral colors. They will be darker brown with some black accents and wall of clear glass serving as a window wall. The applicant in response to this project has gone to the design review board now twice. In both instances, the design review board made comments on the overall design as well as the intent of screening the the excessively tall wall. To be clear, the wall, a structure is allowed that tall within the boundaries, but is a very tall blank wall for that district. The applicant has proposed 5 trees to screen and has agreed to plant California live oak, which is a native plant and is, coast live oak and approved by the fire department. Without going into excessive detail on the design of the home, which is included in the materials that are publicly available, and I'm happy to share as well. If you have not already gotten a chance, I can share them on the screen. We can that can be requested during the public comment phase to review the specific design. The project is overall within the bounds of what is allowed and has been reviewed by the appropriate departments. The applicant has applied for the building permit, and so the comments are actually due today and will be available tomorrow from the building division, the fire department, and public works, who are reviewing and addressing all building safety and site concerns. I am reviewing staff report to make sure that I have not missed anything specifically regarding the design and the proposal. The proposal also includes an overheight driveway retaining wall that is between 4 feet and 9 feet tall outside of the building envelope. Any wall over 4 feet tall does require design review board recommendation for approval, which they gave in the last design review board meeting in March. They did request that the applicant mirror the darker neutral colors of the home and provide lighting that will be appropriate for the district, which will all be conditioned in the project. And so with that, the applicant has not joined, and so I will open the hearing for public comment. If you wish to speak, you may, again, you can raise your hand. If you're on a computer, use the raise hand function. If you happen to be on the phone, which it looks like no one is, however, I will still say you may press *9. I will allow everyone to speak. I will record your questions and I will answer them to the best of my ability following the close of the public hearing. So with that, please raise your hand if there's anything you'd like to speak on or any questions you'd like to ask. All right, Erica, I'm going to ask you to unmute. You're the first to raise your hand.
Hi, so I live at 376 Margarita Drive, which is on the same private driveway as the proposed house. And so I've been following this project with interest. I've attended both of the other meetings as well. And one of the things that I heard raised in the other meetings was that they were willing to allow this home to not conform to the hillside design guidelines, in part because it would not be visible by other homes in the area. And I just wanted to point out that while that may be true for many of the other houses around, it is actually a direct line of sight from my property. And so it is not without neighbors that will be able to view it. And I think part of the reason why they've had trouble photographing it is because they've been staying outside my home, but they haven't come inside my home to be able to see the parcel, because we can see kind of straight up that hill. So just to note that there are neighbors who will be visually impacted, which includes myself. And then because we are directly downhill from this property, my biggest concerns really pertain to potential landslide risk. And if you look at the site, the hill directly beneath, which is on my side of the property line, has sheer vertical walls of dirt. And I have long felt nervous about that hillside being directly above our home. And as Teresa noted in a previous hearing, there are multiple landslide scars directly next to this property. And so personally, I am interested in figuring out what is the landslide risk, especially of things like vertical walls that are beyond the hillside guidelines. And not just aesthetically, but functionally, if there going to be any potential aggravation of the hillside through the building process. And I think the last thing that I have questions and concerns about, which I don't know how much the city is involved in, is given that I share a private driveway with this property, what are the requirements or needs around that driveway, since it's an easement through my property that would be traveled to construct this home. One, that driveway is already in pretty poor condition. Two, it's also only 10 feet wide. And so given that there's going to be an excess amount of traffic and construction vehicles on this private driveway, what are the impacts and what are the responsibilities of the applicant in maintaining that driveway? Is this driveway sufficiently wide enough for the kinds of vehicles that they'll be putting on it? And then also from a fire safety perspective, I think you may remember I spoke about the fact that we actually moved into this home because our last home burned down in the glass fire. And so I know that the fire department is conducting their review and that there's been talk about there being a place for fire trucks to turn around. I just wanted to get, I'm looking forward to seeing that full plan because it is a huge concern, and I'm really just personally wondering how this is all going to work given the narrow driveway that we all share. So thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, Teresa, you were the next to raise your hand. I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
Okay, I'm with Erica on the two large contour lines where there was slides in 1985 and one after that. And when we put on our new driveway on our property, we had to go right along where the driveway is and have it tested every 7 feet for rock, so that the driveway could hold itself without having to slide. And I just wonder, is that going to be some sort of requirement above us of this new structure?
Is there anything else you'd like to?
That yes, and also we did talk about at the previous meeting, which was really for the design, but this point is for this meeting. Can the fire trucks get up past Erica's house on up to the new structure, and is there a turnaround up there for them? Because when we put our new driveway in, we had to have a hammerhead turnaround in order for it to be passed in order to get the permit. So it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And then there was a talk about what was going to happen with the water. Were they going to sink a water tank, or are they going to expose the water tank, or what's happening with water? So those are my three concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Daniel, I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
Hi, Renee. Thank you for hosting this. So I think this proposal presents some visibility issues in addition to safety issues. The visibility issue is the fact that from my sister's bedroom, she would be able to see the entire property, including the pool. But that's not the number one issue. The number one issue is safety. And I think this presents safety risk in terms of fire, mudslide, and also flooding. The fire risk pertains to the 20-foot requirement for a fire truck to pass through. The road is currently 10 feet wide, and there isn't space to carve out an extra 10 feet. That would be encroaching upon Erica's easement of the property. And then in addition, we also had a fire at our property in 2010. And unfortunately, it was a construction started fire. They were just cutting rebar and the wind picked up the rebar and sparks went onto the hillside. And this caused CAL FIRE to get involved. It was 2 helicopters picking up water from the bay, dumping the water onto the site. And then also a CAL FIRE tanker aircraft, which dropped fire retardant all over the neighborhood. That lasted for about 2 years. Now, this, in addition to fire, it also creates mudslide risk. As noted, there are 2 large mudslide scars directly adjacent from this property. And these scars, one of them is at least 100 yards long. The other one I'm guessing is about 50 yards long. But both mudslide scars are at least 10 feet deep. So we're talking about huge mudslide scars. And then in addition, directly below 380 on 340 Highland, there was another mudslide during the torrential rain a few months ago. And the city and the county have shut down the street. The street is impassable to cars, and they really haven't fixed up the road, and it's been almost 6 months now. So if there's already a road that's affected by mudslide, I think we're asking for more risk by having this dwelling, because that's going to circumvent how the water flows. So the water will have less ability to flow naturally, and it's going to be more diverted towards my property and also to Jennifer and Erica's property. So we're gonna have increased rainfall. Now, in addition to fire risk, mudslide risk, there's a third element here. There's also flooding risk, because there's now a proposal for 5 oak trees. And oak trees give off a ton of vegetation. And every year we hire a big crew to clear out all the oak debris from our gutters and drainways. So unfortunately, because these oak trees are going to be above our property, the debris is going to come down onto our property, and then it will be our responsibility to clear this debris or take the risk of flooding. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you to 3 for participating and providing your comment. With that, I will close the public hearing portion. You should have the ability to still raise your hand if following my responses you have more significant concerns, in which case I will reopen the public hearing. But with that, again, public hearing is closed for now, and I will address these issues. I will go down one by one. So for the first piece of it, I do want to clarify, and I know that this has been addressed during the design review board hearing process, but this review and approval today is solely for the zoning environmental and design review permit to build a single family home, the design of which and everything contained within the property. The planning division does not have purview over any road improvements or any safety or disruption concerns during the construction process. However, because these issues have been previously brought up, both in public comment and previous to the design review board hearings and in the public hearing of the design review board, they have been carefully addressed and heard by the fire, building, and public works divisions. We've shared those comments with them, and they are aware of them as well. So I will, so again, all of these concerns are being taken into very careful consideration. The review today is solely on the proposed design of the residential structure as it relates to the existing planned development district. So for the first concern regarding, I'm going to go down sort of the line and I'll address these concerns from how they came up. So in terms of the visibility, yes, there is awareness that this will be visible by the neighboring properties. A concern of the design review board was how visible it would be from the remainder of San Rafael, being at such a high elevation. Our argument of the design review board, which is also a thought shared by the planning division, is that the original approval actually was for a 3-story home in that same location, and the proposed 1-story home, although will have a significant visual impact as it has been a vacant lot, is a reduction in the overall size and mass of what would be allowed without any hearing. The landslide impact. I will also add for the design that although we don't have conditions that relate specifically to visual connections between 2 properties, there are noise or our noise ordinance does address nearby neighbors, which will be a condition of the approval. In terms of the possible landslide impact, again, planning does not have purview over whether or not to approve a project based on that possibility. The original plan development district did consider those impacts as well. Of course, a lot has changed since the time of that approval. And so that will be taken into consideration by the building division and the public works department and fire as well. In terms of the private driveway and easement that goes through the neighboring property, to access the site, that is a concern, that if that is truly, I will be following up on that to make sure that is being addressed appropriately. That will not impact whether or not this project will be approved per planning, but will be a condition of the project that be appropriately addressed before the building permit is issued. And as well, any impacts to any neighboring properties or the shared driveway during the construction process will be heavily conditioned in the approval by planning, in which we will condition that they follow the guidelines of the building and public works division. In terms of being required to hold back anything, I cannot speak to that. I'm not privy to exactly what would be required in terms of holding back any land for a landslide. But again, that will be addressed by public works and building and fire. In terms of a fire truck turnaround, that was reviewed by the fire department on the existing plan. So what is currently being showed contained within the private property is accessible by fire trucks. It does seem very tight. Of course, the beginning of the driveway where it first makes a turn from the road has been determined to be wide enough for the fire truck to then go up the driveway. Up at the top of the driveway, they've left enough room so that a fire truck can completely turn around and not have to back down the driveway. And again, can make that turn at the bottom. The water issue is ongoing. The applicant had previously addressed the availability of water to fight fires, but has not yet completely addressed the ability to provide all water to the site, as was noted previously in the design review board hearings and in with a letter provided by the Meridian Municipal Water District. They stated that they do not currently serve the site at all because of its elevation on the hill. It is above their current water pumps. That is outside of planning's review authority to be able to deny a project based on water availability. However, it has been a part of the review from the beginning and continues to be a part of the building permit review. It will be a condition of this approval that they do address that. Although we cannot base an approval on that, we can include it in the condition that they address that moving forward, as it was brought up as a concern during the design review process. The building division will address that, and they they simply cannot have a certificate of occupancy without being able to provide water to the site. What that means exactly has yet to be determined and will be the responsibility of the applicant to come up with a water system that will not have a significant impact on surrounding properties in a damaging way, and will also be approved by the Marin Municipal Water District. In terms of, again, the previous fires, the fire department will be requiring them to have a fire management plan, in which case they will outline very specific parameters for the applicant to upkeep their property, and any runoff or any vegetation coming from their property. I do hear the concern of the California live oaks giving off an excess of vegetation that will be addressed in their fire plan, as well as any additional water needed to keep those trees alive. In terms of the any mudslide scars, again, that will be addressed by Public Works and Fire. They are aware of that. And any road improvements that have not been made by the city, I will share those concerns from this perspective, from this hearing, so that Public Works is aware. I will encourage you separately from this hearing to reach out to them directly as neighbors if this is impacting your street. I believe that I have addressed the major questions and concerns. Because that was a lot, I will open the public hearing again before I make a decision on this project. So please, if there's anything else you'd like to add or any questions or concerns that you have, please raise your hand. I will also ask that you, Daniel, while I'm asking you to unmute, I'll say to everybody, I would happily welcome your email addresses in the chat box so that I can contact you directly following this meeting with some additional information from Building, Fire, and Public Works so you can stay up to date with their determinations. So Daniel, you should be able to unmute.
Yes, and there's no chat box feature here, unfortunately.
There's no chat.
But my
there?
question is, no, I'm not, there's no chat box for me.
My goodness.
My question is it true that fire code requires 20 feet?
I'm not familiar with the specifics of the fire code.
My understanding is that fire code requires 20 feet for a truck to pass through.
I cannot speak to those requirements, but the fire department has been heavily reviewing this project and will flag that if that is a concern.
Yes, and one reason why it's a concern is because we had a fire in the neighborhood last summer. And the fire trucks had to wait at the bottom of the neighborhood. And they had to wait for every car to evacuate prior to when they were able to send the trucks up the hill. So that's one reason why I was able to look into the fire code, and adding developments on this property will of course increase the time that would take to evacuate the neighborhood as well. So that would increase the burn time and increase the time that the fire trucks have to wait until they get permission to address the fire.
Absolutely. Daniel, would you mind sharing your email address with me so that I can communicate following the meeting?
Sure. DANCAM415@gmail.com. DanCam415@gmail.
Okay, I'm just going to repeat that and make sure I so DANCAM415@gmail.com.
Yes.
Is that okay? Thank you very much for sharing, and I will stay in touch following the meeting. Okay, Erica, I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
Thanks. I was wondering just, I guess, I haven't been through this kind of process before, and what I'm hearing you say is that there are certain things that you're allowed to consider and certain things that you aren't allowed to consider right now, and that you're going to be making a final decision at the end of this meeting. I was wondering if you could please lay out what exactly you're making a decision on right now, what is in the purview of this meeting.
Correct. I will, once I close public hearing again, I will review the findings and conditions that will be applied to this project. The conditions haven't been fully flushed out. You've brought up some very significant concerns that I will be addressing more closely and making sure that that is all captured. In terms of what planning can review, it is very specific to basically the design of the home. We consider comments and we refer to other departments to make sure that everything, is initially reviewed. But planning's purview, and I'll go through that more specifically, is really on the design of the project, the zoning issues, which were primarily addressed in the plan development district that was developed many years ago. And any impacts that are not necessarily life and safety. And what we respond to in the code is what is allowed, more than as I mentioned, the life safety concerns do get addressed by building, public works and fire. I will review more closely what the findings are. And I will, once I have to close the public hearing before I review the findings. And I will say that there are references to environmental impacts and public health and safety and injury of potential injury of neighboring properties and neighbors. Planning can only respond to comments that have been made by Public Works, Building and Fire, and condition that those requirements be met in order for the construction to take place. Would you be comfortable sharing your email with me as well?
Yeah, you have it. Actually, I just sent you an email.
Oh, you did? Okay, perfect. Okay, I see it.
I guess.
So you don't have to share on this, then I do see your email.
One thing that I'm curious about is, you mentioned that there might be some purview for your department regarding the private driveway. Would you be able to explain to me, where you do have some capacity to put attention on the impacts there?
So the only capacity that I have to address the public driveway concern is to condition that any private easements that may be impacted by access to the site be addressed prior to the final certificate of occupancy for the property. I cannot address whether they would be allowed for the building permit issuance, because the majority, the approval for planning is entirely within the bounds of the property. So my approval is only related to the bounds of the property and nothing past that. So if there is an access concern that is related to a neighboring property, if that is on any public land, that will be taken care of by Public Works. And if that's entirely on private property, say if they have to go through your property to get to their property, that is actually a private civil concern. But the building division won't allow them to construct on any property that is not theirs. So from the information that I have and the piece of the project that I'm approving, what I see and the information that is available to me is that that it is within the bounds of their property. So anything outside of those bounds does not fall under planning purview of whether or not the construction of the single family home and driveway can be constructed on their property.
So when you say address, which is the verb I heard you use it there, like, you're saying, because it's a private driveway, you're saying that there's a capacity to mandate some action be taken to them based on the impacts of accessing their property through ours? Is that,
Well, so they can't, so in terms of, well. There will be a condition of the project to ensure safe and fair access to the site. That cannot be approved by planning because it is not within the bounds of their specific property. So this approval is specific to the bounds of the existing property related to the previous plan development district that was approved and the current proposal at
And
the
where-
site, just at the site.
where would be the appropriate venue as somebody that's gonna be highly impacted because they are gonna be passing through my property to build this house? Where would be the appropriate venue for me to address that?
I am going to put all three of you, if you like, in an email in contact with the Building and Public Works Department.
And even though it's a private driveway, that would still be relevant?
I'm going to, it is relevant to Public Works because if they are accessing from the road and there is concern that access from the road will be impacted because of the private driveway, that is their concern. I'm just trying to navigate this Zoom hearing. I'm just going to bring up. So that will be, so yeah, so Public Works will address it. If there is, and I am this. In terms of it being a, so anything beyond the public right of way and anything beyond the property that's designated for this address of 380 Margarita would require an updated private easement agreement, which would have to be an agreement between the two property owners. The city does not get involved in that unless there's a potential impact for fire safety or anything utility related for Public Works. So in their more thorough review for the building permit, they will review those concerns. When they review the project, just for what is at hand, it was simply within the bounds of the property because that's the purview of the planning division. Now that it has gone through the building review process, they will be providing comments that will be a little bit more holistic to the practicalities of the site and whether or not they can get there and access it. So if there is an issue that the city would have to go through a private easement to be able to access the property, that will be addressed. If that is not the issue, if the city can access the property from the public right of way, then it would be a civil matter between the two property owners.
The city can't access the property. You mean for services?
For services, for fire safety.
Well, for both, so the services need to pass through my neighbors at 374 Margarita's property. They have an easement for the services and I have an easement for the road that would be used for the fire trucks and all of the construction vehicles. So just to say, just to get clear, you're saying that there will be another meeting now, if you approve this project, there will be another meeting where we can start to look outside of the bounds of the lot itself?
If I approve the project, there will not be another meeting.
So where then is the appropriate place for these concerns to be raised?
You can address them with Public Works and fire directly.
But you're saying that's not, that's only, they can't care about the effects on the private driveway. They can only care about the effects on the public roads. Sorry, I guess I'm just a little confused.
Sure. I mean, I think that's very fair confusion. I am speaking to what my experience has been in these situations because I cannot make a final determination for them. So that's my hesitation, is that I cannot make a final determination for them. for access to the site and how they will be addressing that.
So it's only Public Works that has the purview over this question, but they also don't really have the purview potentially?
So it's Public Works, probably building and fire. Public Works and fire primarily will have the concern because of fire safety access. So this is all something that gets just more thoroughly addressed during the next phase of the building permit. That's not an open public hearing process, but it is all public information. So you are that information is available to you, and you can reach out to Public Works and Fire directly with any concerns.
So would you recommend I write a letter about this?
I
How do I
not
recommend?
directly recommend that, but I can put you in contact and provide the contact information for those departments.
Okay. And this is, just to get clear, when you close this meeting, this is the end of public comment about this project altogether forever?
This is the end of public comment as it relates to impacting the decision of planning of whether or not to allow essentially the design change of the already approved building on this site. That as a public citizen, you always have the right to contact any department to address any concerns of any building taking place.
So once this, if this design gets approved, then there's a separate process for approving the building permit, or is this? the
Yes.
Approval, okay,
Yes, so this approval is very, very specific to the essentially the zoning process,
okay.
the
And is
design.
there public comment in the building permit portion?
There's not an official public comment, but you can, as a public citizen, contact the building division with concerns.
Okay, thank you for clarifying all of that.
Okay, with that, I am going to close the public hearing. I'm just going to make sure that that is done appropriately. I apologize for there not being a chat function that may have recently been disabled, so I apologize for my reference to that. My information, I hope you do have from the notice that was sent out. You can also find it just publicly available. It's my name, which you see on the Zoom, Renee.Nickenig, NICKENIG at cityofsanrafael.org. And I'm just making sure I have all my information in front of me, that I don't miss anything. And so, and so to recap, this zoning administrator review and approval is specific to the request for an environmental and design review permit to construct a single family home, a detached accessory structure, an attached pool to the single family home, a driveway and site improvements for the vacant property located at 380 Margarita Drive. The reason for needing the zoning administrator of review is because in PD Plan Development District 1808-H, it does specify that any the property was previously approved for a single-family home of 3 stories and a driveway at the property. The Plan Development District specifies that any change to the design be reviewed by the zoning administrator. That reference is to the design of the home from a 3-story Mediterranean-style building, in this case to the 1-story flat roof, more contemporary designed home that is being proposed. The review also includes the up to 9-foot retaining walls, noted as required to construct the driveway, which has been initially reviewed by Public Works and Fire, to ensure fire access at the site, and proper fire turnaround, and was determined by the design review board to be appropriate. And so with that, the action taken is for conditional approval of the change of design to the home and the overheight walls. The findings for that decision are that the project are in accord with the general plan, the objectives of the zoning ordinance, and the purpose of this chapter. The project meets that finding as it is the addition of a single family home, with the appropriate number of parking spaces and access at the site. The project is consistent with all applicable site architecture and landscaping design criteria and guidelines for the district in which the site is located. Again, this is a departure from what was originally proposed in the Plan Development District, and has been reviewed by that design review board in relationship to our existing hillside design guidelines and our residential subjective residential design guidelines currently published. It has been determined that the project retains the intent of those guidelines, as it does have varying face sizes of the property, is proposed to be screened partially by California live oak, and is as opposed to the 3-story structure originally approved, is lower in mass and overall volume and height for the site. One finding is that the project design minimizes adverse environmental impacts. Environmental impacts as they relate specifically to planning are related to the literal environment of the hillside, but also any potential risk of impacts to any historical or potentially archaeological resources. These impacts were addressed in the original Plan Development District in which the building envelope quote was created. The project, the single family home as well as the accessory structure, is entirely contained within the existing building envelope, which took into consideration the overall hillside, including the significant ridge line which runs through the property. And this building will not exceed those boundaries except for the driveway and the overheight retaining walls, which will be installed to reduce grading at the site to ensure a safe driveway. The wall for the pool is within the allowable height for the building. However, it was noted that the blank concrete wall is significantly visual for the neighborhood and for the surrounding properties. And so it was determined by the design review board and the planning division that this wall, adequate screening from the wall could be allowed by California, by vegetal screening. The applicant has agreed to plant Coast Live Oak as a recommendation from the fire department, which is approvable. This will be conditioned that the property owner work within the guidelines provided by fire to make sure that that does not have an impact on surrounding properties, both for safety and for general maintenance. The final finding is that the project design will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, nor materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. These are concerns brought up by the public that there is potential for fire and landslide risk. The design and location of the home as it was previously approved is approved at that location. So this because it is not exceeding those bounds, it meets those requirements for planning review. However, it would also be conditioned and it will be reviewed by fire, building, and public works to ensure that safety. Of course, elements of the site have changed and they will only be issued a building permit once those safety concerns have been met. Again, the conditions of approval will be substantial. At a basic level, the property owner will be required, of course, to have a building permit to be able to construct the home, as well as easements agreements for appropriate access to the site. All landscaping will be required to be maintained with a management plan through the fire department, and any concerns of landslide and construction will be addressed by building and public works. Additionally, for the planning division, the property will be required to meet all lighting and noise regulations from the city. Those lighting and noise regulations do include a provision that if there is excessive disturbance to the neighbors, that be addressed. Once the building is constructed, there is a 90-day review period for all lighting and noise concerns. However, should that change past those 90 days, they will be addressed by the city. Finally, one piece that I did not review in the beginning, and in response to the concern for any additional public comment. There is an appeal period for this project. So the appeal period will close next Wednesday at 5 p.m. However, in that time, any member of the public may appeal the decision. I am going to read you the process for that now. An appeal letter and fee must be submitted to the planning division within those 5 days. The appeal letter should include your name, address, phone, email of the persons appealing the decision, and cite the specific reasons for appeal. There is a $300 appeal fee for a neighbor or any resident of San Rafael, and a $4,834 deposit fee for any non-resident of San Rafael. Fees can be brought directly to City Hall, or if the appellant should choose to do that remotely, that can be arranged. I see that Teresa and Erica have left. I am going to close the meeting, but Daniel, I do see your hand raised. You're welcome to contact me directly following the meeting. My phone number is 415-485-3397. Thank you, everyone, very much.